My name is Jonathan Flesher. I head up business development for Betable. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I was originally a finance guy and learned that that business is kind of painful. So I called it quits after about 15 years and joined Electronic Arts. Was there running online business development for about 3 years, and then joined Zynga, which what I thought was a mature startup at 300 people, but I soon learned was growing at a ridiculous pace back when Farmville was launched, and headed up business development for Zynga for about 3.5 years. Did some very interesting things there, one of which was look into Zynga's strategy on the real money space. It actually was the first and the last thing that I did at Zynga. The last deal I did being the UK white label partnership with BWin Party. So I've spent a lot of time actually with some people in this room analyzing the real money space from a developer's perspective. And I have to say it's a challenging space to understand. There's a lot of things in it, regulations, laws, casinos, land-based casinos, that you have to get comfortable with, and that varies by jurisdiction. And there's a real lack of understanding typically within the game developer space. And that's really why I joined Betable, because Betable provides a solution to allow game developers to participate in the real money space. So 1 year ago, when I joined Betable, we were the first platform to launch that would allow any developer to quickly and legally integrate real money gambling and betting into their games. And essentially what we do is we provide a platform that includes our licenses, so we are a licensed gambling operator, customer wallet, payments, fraud, KYC, which stands for Know Your Customer, so age verification, geolocation, all the pieces that you have to have in place, in addition to a certified math engine. And when I say math engine, I really mean that it is something that you configure similar to the way that you as a game developer of virtual currency would iterate on games. This allows you to iterate on your math model, and it solves the math for the game that you want to build, as opposed to putting a bunch of 5 different slot models that you have to develop your game towards. So it's truly a flexible platform. And being an ex-finance guy, I really appreciate the stats behind it. Some of the trends that we've seen in the last year is developers are making RMG a core part of their strategy. We've been successful enough to sign up a bunch of developers, many of them very good friends in the industry. And I have to say we've learned a lot over the last year. And 2 things that I would highlight that have come out of this is really, as you consider RMG from a game development perspective, there are really 2 important things. Is one, you have to be willing to invest into it. You have to put some development resources behind it and really learn and iterate to be successful on this. It doesn't come easy. It's not just a matter of turning on real money in a virtual currency casino. That won't be successful. You really do need to optimize your game for real money play, not only to remain compliant and legal, but also to optimize for the nuances and the difference of real money play. Second thing you need to do is actually invest in user acquisition. User acquisition can be done by the developer, can be done by Betable, we help, but while it's similar to virtual currency, it is different. There's different channels, there's different partners. Affiliates play a very big role in the gambling world, which is something that game developers typically do not deal with. Channels that you're familiar with, such as Facebook and some of the ad networks, are actually quite good when you optimize them for acquiring players, and we've had some great success in lowering the user acquisition cost to things that are within the realm of virtual currency user acquisition costs. So you really need to think about user acquisition and spend time learning and optimizing in addition to the game development that you're going to do. Second big trend in the real gambling market is, particularly with the US, you've been seeing a lot of news around states opening up. Right now, the US currently has 3 states that are live and legal. That's New Jersey, Delaware, and Nevada. Nevada has poker only. Delaware is run by the lottery and has a very small population, as you know. So New Jersey is the first big kind of landmark state that went live. There are lots of other states that have had proposals or talk about it. You can argue one way that California is going to go live or pass a bill this year. They've been talking about that for the past 10 years. So it's tough to predict where the next state is going to legalize gambling within the U.S., but suffice it to say that most people believe that this is the start of a trend within the U.S., and that's pretty exciting given the size of the market before UIGEA came into play. And then really, I'd say the opportunity for right now is outside the U.S., and it's still ripe for first movers. I understand we had Raf give a great presentation on the challenges of social casino right now. Getting into a fairly mature market, but there is room for innovation, as he said. You can be innovative in the gambling space. You can be innovative in your user acquisition. You can be innovative in, how you design your game. And something to understand about this space is it's huge. Not just the online piece, which is quite large, but when you take into account the legal, land-based business, it's staggering. And that is moving online more and more markets are legalizing, so are moving from what we might call a black or gray market into white legal markets, which is a good thing. So we're seeing both of those green bars get bigger, and we're seeing more business go online. So it's a great trend to get in front of from a monetization standpoint. However, I'd say there is a ton of confusion around what is real money, how to get into it, what do I need to do as a developer, who do I need to partner with, what are my options. So let me run you through what actually happened with me at Zynga before I joined Betable. Obviously, real money has a lot of money and people really want to get into it, but it's very confusing. So meet Joe, the developer. That was me. Eager to innovate, eager to make money, eager to grow the business. And you're looking really for differentiated revenue streams and a way to expand your revenue base as you grow as a company. And so you start discussing that with the team. We have a problem, user acquisition costs are going through the roof. The conversion from free to play is single digits. It's really hard to get people over the hump. Yes, there is great money out there, but like Raf said, it's the social casino is getting to be a crowded space. So how do we get more money into our games? You look at this. People have shown various articles around the cost of user acquisition relative to the lifetime value. Suffice it to say that on certain geos and certain platforms, it is actually becoming uneconomic to acquire users for certain types of games. Overall, user acquisition costs are rising. You see gambling companies who have very deep pockets coming into the market, and they're competing, either through their own social games, as you guys have heard, or just buying to try to attract users into their gambling offerings. And they're targeting the exact same people that game developers are targeting. Middle-aged women love to play slots. So they're buying up, and that causes the cost of acquisition to rise up. And if you're unable to keep up, that's a very hard thing as a small game developer, unless you have very, very deep pockets behind you. So what you do is you go in and say, hey, one option we could consider is going into real money. That's pretty interesting. Big market, big numbers. Obviously, if you look at the economics of what a real money gambling game developer makes, it's actually quite small. Typical revenue shares for a gambling game developer are around 10%. This is a very different model from what a game developer is used to, with a platform like Facebook or Apple, where you're getting 70% of the revenues. Granted, you are not having to take care of the marketing typically. You're distributing your game to someone who does all the marketing for you, but you're going to have to get 10% of a net number. So you've got to really understand what the difference is and why these two industries are converging, particularly as you see what's happening on Facebook, with gambling games going on to Canvas. Some are successful there, some are not. I think it really comes down to understanding the platform that you're on as to whether or not you're successful. So if you start looking at what it is for an RMG partner, you really want to have an attractive monetization operating. You want a positive ROI. You want to, as most game developers, you want to control the development. You want to control and iterate because that's what you're really good at. You make creative content and you bring it to users. You also don't want to wait around for 2 to 3 years to apply for a gambling license and go through that process. So speed is actually a critical component. And then you want reputation, and it's really hard to find out in the gambling industry who's a clean operator, who's not. It tends to be something of rumor and innuendo, and it's really hard to find an objective standard as to who are the people that we should be partnering with, because it is a very different world. And then you really want to control that direct relationship with the user that's in your piece of content. So you meet with the lawyers. Wow, 18-month process. It's going to cost us millions of dollars, and getting the license is no certain thing. And then we're going to have our senior execs all go through the regulatory scrutiny. I have to tell you, going through my New Jersey license application, my application was this thick. It really took me over 80 hours to complete with the help of our lawyers and my financial advisor. It's no joke. They want to know everything. And that's a good thing, but it is a very painful process to go through. So that's not really a sensible process for your average game developer. The ROI is hard because you got a big upfront cost. Yeah, you can control your own content, but you have to figure out a way to iterate quickly because you're still going to have to go through a game certification process with third-party testing houses. And that speed to get to market is very slow. You're talking at least 18 months, more likely longer, because that's the fastest I've ever heard of anybody be able to get into the market with their own content. And reputation is an issue. It will change what you are viewed as a company. And you can control the UX, but this whole licensing process, it's not for everyone. And as you see with what happened to Zynga, they pulled out of the licensing process over time. So you meet with a traditional online gambling company, and you can do what's called typically a white label solution or a B2B offering. This generally is kind of like an ad deal, where you send your users off to a third-party site. And that can be structured as an affiliate relationship. It can be structured as a white label. We'll essentially skin a website, and you'll send your users off to an experience you don't control with games that aren't yours. And you're going to get a nice, healthy revenue share. Little feedback. You'll get a nice, healthy revenue share, but it's not really doing what you guys do, which is you make great games. You can also look at licensing. This is good for big consumer brands. I mean, you could see, Hasbro has a lot of success in this space with brands like Monopoly. We worked long and hard at Zynga to license Farmville out into the gambling space, and that was something that was challenging at best and didn't happen. You'll see rare examples of something that works well. Plants vs. Zombie is a great example from my former employer. That's been able to make the crossover. Slingo is another one, but I can count those brands on one hand. And even if you do this, you're going to get a very, very, very small slice of the pie. And it's unlikely, unless you have a great game made out in the gambling space, that you'll make material revenues. You'll likely get around 1% of the cut. So this is what you do. You want to rip out your hair. I did this probably multiple times with Mark Pincus in the room. Because it was challenging to figure out how to actually do this. So if you were to walk through for what Betable does, we allow you to keep the users in your game. We allow you to control the user experience, the game development process. We take the headache of going out and getting a license, developing all kind of the wallet compliant KYC geolocation, all that kind of stuff, and we package up in an easy to use set of APIs that are very similar to Facebook's APIs. So this is the type of thing that, as a developer, I would want to buy. And this is something that we've seen a number of our partners sign up for and be really pleased with the results. But it's not for everyone. It really takes a commitment from the developer to actually put development resources against, again, optimizing the game for real money play and on working on the user acquisition to optimize. And so Joe in this story meets with his team again, and awkward high fives 6 months later. To run you through the process, I mean, from our platform, it will take, depending on your game, to integrate with the APIs, it can take as short a time as 2 days. On the outside edge, it might take a week or two. Really, the majority of the content comes down, the effort comes down to the UI layer, and it really depends on the architecture of your game as to whether it's set up for client versus server. The certification process that we go through is actually quite rapid. We've worked with the certification houses to actually set up a package that can be certified in order of 48 to 72 hours. And then the final long tail piece would be submitting to Apple for the iOS store. We're mainly focused on mobile, but that is another process that you have to go to. That can take as short as a day. It can take up to 2 weeks. It just depends on who your reviewer is, as you know, and what your relationship is with them. But to give you a summary of all the options that are open to developer, I think what spans from easiest to hardest is really the IP license. Again, that's licensing out your brand. That's really only available to the very largest game brands, and that's challenging at best, and you're hoping that someone else will do a great job with your content. You're not controlling the experience, you're not controlling the branding, and you're not controlling the distribution of that content. You might get 10% of your of net revenues. That's plus or minus. Some of the brands might be able to command slightly higher rates, some a little lower. But after you take out some of the middleman charges, you're going to be getting, at best, single digits of revenue share. That is good if you want to really stay arm's length and you have big brands. The affiliate, that's the ad deal, where you can already do that in your games. You can already run advertising and send traffic off. And you're essentially two models that you can benefit from there, a CPA or revenue share. The revenue shares that the affiliates get in the gambling space are quite large. You can benefit a lot if you're able to send a significant amount of traffic over that monetizes well. The key there is just make sure you know who you're working with and know the partners that you're sending the traffic to, so that you can be sure that you'll be getting paid and the links will be tracked. You can see revenues shares on the order of 30 to 50% of the lifetime value of the customer, so they're quite significant. The white label we just talked about, percentage is higher, but again, you're sending your traffic off to another website that's essentially managed by a third party. Examples of companies like that, most famous probably is Playtech. You'll see like an 888 Dragonfish. They will be able to stand up a website for you with a series of games, and they'll manage it for you, and they'll put your brand on it. But again, you're sending it off to an experience that you don't control, that does not run off the brand of your games. And finally, the option is to go as a gambling operator, go out and get a license. Again, that's a long, torturous process with lots of money. I mean, most people will sit there and quote, oh, it's only like $500,000, $600,000 to get an all-day license. That's just the tip of the iceberg. You're going to have significant legal fees. It's going to take a very long time. And then you're going to have to go through the banking process of setting up relationships with banks and getting approved as a gambling processor. So what seems relatively short and easy on the surface is actually quite a long time. And then finally, what's not on the slide is what we just ran you through with Betable. We're fortunate enough to have been validated by a few other entrants into the space. So it's great to see over the last year that we've really gone from something that is somewhat scary to the gambling industry to being a lot more mainstream in what's going on. And we've been able to close a recent round of funding that we are going out to expand our market reach. We are currently in the UK and we'll be pursuing additional licenses in Europe and the US that we hope to have up and running in the very near future. So if you'd like to learn more about Betable, please hit our website. We've got a great blog. We have a former writer from Gambling Compliance who writes a number of articles for us so you can learn about the real money space as a developer. All right. Thanks very much.